Hello everybody, this is Nite Misfortune from the future bringing you this first replay in the GamerReplays tournament. This is a late cast of, overcast of the game that happened on my stream, but unfortunately I was having a lot of issues. As you can see, even the overlay is a little bit messed up. And let's me introduce the players first. So up here in the top right hand corner, we have our blue Aeon commander with the name of MauganRa. And he is starting with one air factory and one land factory over there. And his opponent on the bottom, we have our Cybran commander, our return of the pro, the Iron commanders, starting with two land structures. So actually I think my overlay is right, because Iron Commander did in fact grab the random faction. He was always playing random in this tournament. And the only thing that's wrong is the semifinal part. This is of course the quarterfinal of the tournament. This is a best out of 3. And I think actually everything else is the same. So that's pretty good. The only thing missing is obviously my voice. So this is a very exciting tournament, and over the course of the next 2 weeks, I will be bringing you all the replays from that. So I have 2 more games to cast after this, and then it will be all done. It was a nice and short tournament, but it was pretty great. You can see here MauganRa expanding with another land factory. So this looks to be 1 air and 3 factory land opening from Aeon. And probably going to be some sort of variation of a 3-fac opening from Iron Commander here. We see Iron already putting on the pressure with his bots, while MauganRa has revealed his air and is starting to bomb that, of course, because left unattended, that's going to trickle in and cause a lot of havoc. MauganRa doing a really good job expanding over there to the top right of the map, to that 3 o'clock position. I guess it's the right of the map. This map is so weird. I'm never sure what to call the spawn points on this map. But doing a very good job so far harassing. Maybe he's going to pick up that engineer, and MauganRa is going to clean that up, so that is good for him. And we see Iron Commander also spreading out quite a bit, doing a nice split on his units. Those adapters now coming in, contributing some fire to those We Do Boths. And we do see indeed, I believe that's still the second land factory from MauganRa. And there's that third land factory from Iron Commander that ACU is pushing out, although it is not really supported by anything, which might be a little bit of an issue here. MauganRa targeting down that adapter, but it somehow lives. That is ridiculous against 5 planes. An adapter should not be stronger than a radar. That is quite insane there. Already having a nice contingent of some land forces for MauganRa. And actually, Iron Commander is managing to pick off pretty much half of MauganRa's air forces. MauganRa putting down that third land factory. And Iron Commander has decided not to put down the third land factory, which might end up being a little bit of a mistake. MauganRa is squeezing out quite a bit of units on a relatively small economy here. So if in the next couple of minutes MauganRa amasses a lot of land units, that will be quite problematic. However, Iron Commander is expanding quite a bit. So if that does not happen, then Iron Commander will be able to bounce back a little bit better in this game here. There's a nice contingent of bots and adapters in the top of the map here, being ready to contest that mass extractor. MauganRa realizes that he does not have enough tanks up there, so he's building a hasty point defense. And this is, I would say, the only really acceptable point. One of 2, I guess, positions where I would say it's acceptable to build a PD. So many times I see newer players building point defenses as part of their opening build even, and that's, you definitely don't want to be doing that. You really want to respond to aggression or flanking with point defenses, and that's really the only 2 times that you should be building those structures. Those tanks finally catching up to the adapters, and because those adapters are quite a bit slower than the Loyalist, they are gonna get picked off pretty easily by those 4 tanks, and that leaves those Loyalists in the back to be very easily picked off by the air. So very nice play by MauganRa. Iron Commander could have done a little bit better to micro those Loyalists under the adapter shields, but even then I don't think it would have mattered too much. And now we see that both the players are trying to focus on that bottom part of the map, at least in terms of their land forces. But MauganRa has stopped his advance, or in terms of mass extractor expansion. We see him falling quite far behind on the land forces here, or sorry, on the mass extractor front. Iron Commander retreating because he does have quite a bit of adapters in that composition, and that's not super useful. That's not going to be super useful in this fight. And I'm going to try and keep up the pressure, but really he cannot contest that many tanks. And that's really what this opening forces you to do, is go into adapters. But in some cases, it might not even be a good idea to go adapters, because your opponent amasses so many tanks, and it becomes so easy for your opponent to outclass you in the land war. A lot of times the Aeon players will even cancel their air production in favor of tanks, and that just overwhelms the Cybran army with adapters very, very easily, because there's not enough adapters or land forces to really take care of that other tank army. Not enough DPS, in other words. MauganRa already putting down his 4th land factory, but we see 4 land factories and then 5 and 6 being queued up for Iron Commander. And at this point, I would really be going Brackman, and we do see actually that. So we see Brackman coming out of one of those factories, I believe. And Iron Commander is just doing this dance with his army, forward, backwards, and just really trying to keep the tank army of MauganRa out of his base, plopping down another land factory. And we see quite a bit of land factory being queued up, so we're going to go up to 10, it looks like. There's an engagement here. Those Brackman Fire are going to try and get some good shots, but there's now shields on the army from MauganRa. At least I think I see shields. Sorry, I'm looking at this replay in quite a bit of a smaller format, because I am doing a voiceover here of a past video. The second match should be a little bit better, because I did solve my audio issues, I think. PD coming up from Iron Commander, doing a really good job just covering his bases here, because he does realize that his army is a little bit outclassed in terms of DPS. There's Shajas now even, so he does plop down that point defense, which will make it so hard for MauganRa to engage with this land factory. Brackman Fire connecting a little bit with some of those units. Those MMLs are getting mismicroed a little bit, getting hit by a bunch of Brackman Fire, but managing to survive somehow. And that point defense is super low, so is that factory, but MauganRa is going to decide to back off, which is not ultimately a good decision here. There's another PD coming down. At least that factory has went down, so that is pretty good for him. And on the retreat, Iron Commander manages to pick up so many units with the Brackman Fire, and of course the combined retreat of the Shajas just gets him a very nice engagement there. Retreating as an Aeon is never fun, because I feel like tanks are slower than even UEF tanks, and I feel like I'm always like struggling to retreat. And especially if you have Shajas in the mix, it just becomes a nightmare. You really have to micro them separately. So 5th land factory coming out for MauganRa, and there's just a bunch of, I think, energy being queued up for Iron Commander. He's preparing for that to transition into experimentals. That is not for teleport. And he's not going to push into that, because he realizes that there's a shield on that factory, and MauganRa has managed to reacquire quite a bit of units, plus Shajas are quite a bit dangerous. We do see that Megalith factory finally coming up online. And that is going to be the transition into mid-game here. And at this point, I believe I realized that the voice was off. So I'm going to turn it on here and I'll see you in the actual replay. Thanks, guys. I thought I unpaused it like 10 minutes ago. Wow, this is going great. I definitely thought I unpaused it. Been talking to nobody this whole time. All right, well, yeah, I don't even know where to begin. This has been an incredible day so far for me. I muted myself twice. All right, well, I apologize, everybody. It will be better. I promise. I'll end up recasting this anyway at this point. I'll have to. So we do see MauganRa opening up with that air-land opening, while Iron Commander opened with 2 land factories. And this is very reminiscent of that Vanity versus MauganRa game we saw yesterday for the League playoffs. So if you haven't seen that, go and check that out. Perhaps you'll see some differences. I'm not going to spoil anything of that game, but it was a very, very good set of matches. And the final was on open palms. But Iron Commander did a very good job this game, expanding and grabbing all of these mass extractors, which has allowed him to keep up, surpass his opponent at this point. And because he had a really good engagement here with some PDs, that was a wonderful play by him. He was able to stop Maugan's advantage. MauganRa definitely had a land advantage with all those tanks and Shajas. Because of those adapters, adapters aren't too helpful against this composition of pure tanks and Shajas. So they are definitely good against air and protecting some damage, but with that overwhelming force, it's really difficult. And of course that has allowed Iron Commander to really grab a Megalith. Where did Iron's Commander's commander go? So hard to say, Iron Commander's commander. And so at this point, MauganRa is really going for that teleport, as we see confirmed pretty much by these energy generators. But at this point, the armies have equilibrated, and it's kind of hard to push a Cybern because of that structure detonate with teleport, because of course that detonation is always a possibility. So at this point, Iron Commander is just going to sit back and wait for that Megalith to come to the front, at which point it will be a little bit safer for him to push. Of course, he does have to keep the Megalith close to his units because of that teleport, which I'm pretty sure MauganRa has at this point. He had shields for quite some time, and he had 2 research stations after that. And there's a row of research stations being built. And MauganRa is still down on that tech. I don't think there's actually a teleport yet. He definitely, I think, would have teleported by now because that army was so out of position to cover that Megalith. He might be going lol gun. There's a teleport. There we go. But at this point, it's a little too late. That Megalith has already weakened the majority of those units. There's also Brackman Fire that is very decently connecting here. That Megalith has still not been target fired. And this is a pretty hopeless fight for these Aeon units here. Especially if Iron Commander gets unit detonate. Really should probably turn. There's another teleport coming in. Now target firing that Megalith. Unfortunately, there's a second one that has rolled off the line. And Iron Commander's economy is just insane at this point. He's throwing down 2 additional land gantries, and he has completely demolished MauganRa's army on all fronts. Even in the top here, he has managed to push through. And at this point, unless there is a loyalty gun that comes up in the next minute or so, this is going to be very, very difficult for MauganRa to stop. Iron Commander is on all fronts, and this is why Iron Commander was one of the greatest, debatably is one of the greatest, or is the greatest in this game, and still is showing to be so. These charges are doing nothing when they're turned around. The army at the top is wreaking havoc. That air is just sitting around. MauganRa is lost at what to do here. There's nothing left to do. There's a bunch of point defenses coming up. Or I guess there's just one. There's a teleport to try and pick off this one tiny excursion of Brackman, but unfortunately there's 2 more armies. Oh, and there's electroshock coming out. Really probably should activate that right here also. There we go. That might deter Iron for a little bit, but there are 3 megaliths now. 2 megaliths. One has went down. And there will probably be cicadas coming out here pretty shortly. Let's double check our gantries here. Nope, no cicadas yet, but honestly it's a pretty good possibility here. Iron Commander is going to continue to try and play a more safe game. Nope, he turns them around. So definitely probably a good idea to end this, because it's never a good idea to let a Aeon player sit on that teleport and replenish his army. And MauganRa does end up calling GG's. So apologies for all that audio issues earlier. I swear to God, I unmuted it and then somehow I muted it again. Definitely going to be trying to pay attention a little bit more to that. But we're going to go to match number 2. It's going to be MauganRa's map pick. It's his best out of 3, as I tried to explain, but I was muted. So I'll be right back and I'll explain it again, and see you soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am glad I unmuted myself this time. This is, of course, Nite of Misfortune, bringing you the GameReplays tournament. Round number 1, best out of 3 between MauganRa and Iron Commander. MauganRa has lost out on the first match on Open Palms. We are going to our second match on Desolatia, not the favorite map. We know that Foxtermelon loves this map, absolutely loves this map. He asked me to shout him out, so hello, Foxtermelon. Alright, let's introduce our players. On the top left, we have our blue Aeon Commander, MauganRa, opening up with a similar build to what we saw him do on Open Palms. 1 air and 1 land. Gonna be going up and getting another land factory. And his opponent, the random commander, Iron Commander. That score is not right. Iron Commander took the first match. Opening up with the same build again. He pulled Cybran 2 times in a row. That's quite incredible. Opening up with 2 land factories. And MauganRa is going to scout that out. Going to see the same type of game. And I think, again, on this map especially, this really does favor Iron because of that short rush distance. Of course, if MauganRa manages to get these MMLs to the down below this ridge here, that will be a very advantageous position for him. And because of that air cover, that is a little bit easier to do. Of course, Desolation is, again, a smaller map, so it's easier to get that anti-air coverage, which Iron will most probably be going adapters on this map also. I think adapters on this map are even better than on Open Palms because of these chokes and because of the size of this map. And we do indeed see adapters rolling off. 2 have already come off the line. The third one popped out. And these MMLs are going to be shut down for the most part. So this combination of air and MML really is not too great against Cybran. But MauganRa will probably try and push this out as best as he can with the initial push. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets Shajas. I've seen him get Shajas on this map a couple of times. Continuing to scout those expansions, but Iron Commander is again doing just a little bit better on his speed of expansion, sending out 2 engineers out. And we will see the first engagement here, as that Loyalist probably takes some tank fire by the looks of it. Maybe some MML fire. It's always sad when ground units get hit by mobile missile launchers, but who knows? That MML fire getting shut down by the adapter. And most likely, Iron is going to back off to construct an additional land factory here. And he really just does not, based on his positioning, this is really good position to take on this map. You're really shutting down your opponent's ability to come down to the sides here and around your map. Because you're so close to his base, your opponent really can't go out of position too much. So by being here, he's locking MauganRa to this location. And even though he doesn't have MMLs of his own, he's really protecting his base, even though he's not blocking his opponent's advance. So that is very decently played by Iron, soaking up that tank fire with his commander. Oh man, that's the luckiest tank ever right here. Oh, Iron Commander is a little bit out of position here, taking some fire. You always want to have your units firing when your commander is soaking up damage, otherwise really he's just soaking up damage for nothing. Iron completing his expansions, but MauganRa actually manages to catch up a little bit, and at this point he's just one mass extractor behind. Yeah, exactly one mass extractor behind. Iron Commander doing a great job sending one adapter up here to the top to try and protect that expansion from the air. Of course, we did see a bunch of MauganRa's air go down, and Iron does have radar, so that is why he's only sending one up there. Yeah, this is definitely overkill. He should see that there is no air for his opponent. And at this point, I think we need Brackman again. And yep, here they are. The first two coming up. Actually, there's been a couple in here already. And let's see what Iron is teching. He likes to tech his training. And we do see, I think, 2 stars already on Iron's units. MauganRa has no stars on his units. Trying to soak up some damage, but that micro is a little bit off. Backing off, trying to avoid that Brackman fire. That PD is coming into play here. Shot just coming off the line now. Really should be split microed at this point because your opponent is pushing you so hard. Those shot just should be positioned under the shield here and just firing on anything that advances. And MauganRa is squeezing out a 4th land factory here in a second. After this mass extractor goes down, and manages to catch up on mass extractors, which is pretty good. Iron is sending a cheeky engineer down here below. Gonna try and capture some mass or an engineer, which will be a little bit difficult. But nevertheless, if MauganRa is not paying attention, certainly is a big possibility. Fourth land factory going down from Iron Commander, gonna try and catch up. There's another PD from MauganRa. Really not a huge fan of building PDs at this point. You have one which is gonna do a decent job, but these MMLs are pretty good for Cybern, especially when there's no way for you to counter them. So these, I expect this one to, unless he doesn't target fire it, this PD will go down, especially because it's not under the shield. So the positioning is not the best. And I think MauganRa is a little off his game today. Iron is going to win this engagement. Oh, sack cap. Very nice. Very nicely done by MauganRa. Just as I say, he is not on his game today. But I feel like this is a panic PD. This is a panic PD that could have been positioned better and ultimately was not needed. MauganRa, or sorry, Iron Commander mismicroing here. getting those units taken out. But that Brackman fire is connecting. MauganRa is not microing as good as he can, and engaging those Cybern units directly is not a good idea because of structure detonate. This fight can be over with a single press of 2 keys of Alt D on those units, and that would have been very, very bad. And Iron Commander has managed to squeeze out 6 mobile missile launchers that are gonna wreak havoc on MauganRa's base. And this is beginning to look pretty bad for MauganRa. Somehow an engineer made it to the top as well. There's a structure detonate or a control K on that mass extractor, but there's nothing preventing this sole lonely engineer from taking out this whole expansion. There's a mobile missile launcher being sent up here by MauganRa, which I think is actually a play to do a one last push. He's going to try to get some RS from killing these captured mass extractors, and then going to try to push out, because I think this is ultimately over for him. He's taking Brackman fire, bot fire, PD fire, all sorts of fire is wreaking havoc on this Aeon army, and Iron Commander is looking so strong in these 2 games, and it is absolutely incredible what this guy has shown us in these 2 matches. Trying to squeeze out or putting down a 6th land factory, and MauganRa's base lays in ruins here. I think Iron probably mismicroed here. These mobile missile launchers definitely were not meant to be sent down here. Oh, wait a second here. The army, was there a control K? Oh no, he probably just sent it around. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, taking out all expansions, great micro, great map awareness, and great use of his units. Great use of map as well, and this is why it's really dangerous to play air on this map, is because your opponent will most likely push you, and it's so crazy close on this map. MauganRa is pretty low here in the red. It's not enough units from Iron to... No, there's gonna be enough. No, there's 2 bots. Okay. Alright. MauganRa barely saves his commander with 400 HP. Okay, Iron, this is really not gonna work. He's not that low. Oh man. I mean, at this point, there's really nothing that MauganRa can do. I have a feeling that he was going overcharge here, but at this point his commander is so low, he's just gonna walk into that PD, and MauganRa goes down in game 2. That is a 2-0 win for Iron Commander, and that was very strong and very impressive, and I am honestly afraid for the other players coming out, because that is unbelievably strong from our pro of the past. I guess he's still a pro. So I'm gonna go check out on the tournament status, and once we come back, it will be the semifinals. Hopefully I will be bringing you both of those, so stay tuned and don't go anywhere.